So in the end of the previous chapter, Perek Chav Vav in Shar Daled, Nefesh HaChaim spoke about that learning Torah is paramount, even above the mitzvah of tefillah. And then he said, not only that, he said that tefillah is dependent on learning. Right? Davening is dependent on learning. So the question came up is like, what's the mechanism? Why is that so? Right? I think that's really the question. The question is, why is that the meaning? Okay, so I'm not learning, but I'm davening. So why is that? Why are those two things interconnected in any way? Right? So let's say I'm not learning, but I am shaking lulav. Right? So you're telling me my mitzvah of lulav is not. Right.
Probably means more a lot to you if you know what you're doing.
Right. So Nefesh HaChaim is not clear. So I'm also not clear. He just took it as a kind of a secondary point. He didn't dwell on it too much, and he didn't clarify what the mechanism is. The only thing that I can think of is that he's talking about, clearly one thing that we have to accept, that he's talking about not a person who's not capable of learning, right? He's talking about a person who has the ability to learn, right? And then that doesn't utilize that ability, right? And the problem is that such a person creates a diminishing of kedusha in the worlds, right? In the entire chain of existence, such a person diminishes the kedusha, right? He breaks up this linkage, right? Tefillah works the same way. Tefillah is also is a similar mechanism as learning, right? HaKol Kol Yaakov, the voice of Yaakov. Those are the two primary voices. You have the voice of learning and the voice of davening, right? They both work within the same framework, which is they're trying to connect the spiritual to the physical. They're trying to bring down the light from Hashem and diffuse it throughout the rest of the universe, right? So when a person, however, but he's saying is that Torah is paramount. Torah originates from the very source of the entire creation, right? It's above the entire creation. So you're reaching out to the very source of the whole thing. So this person who doesn't do this, the person who steps away from this responsibility, and as such his actions cause a diminishing of the lights, and then he turns around and says, okay, let me pray now to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bring down the lights. There seems to be a contradiction, so you are dismissing the nuclear bomb, so to speak, which is learning Torah to create that connection, and you're going with whatever it is, So that maybe is the problem, that it's just because those tools are very similar, right? And one is much higher than the other one, and you're not utilizing the higher one, and you're going for the lower one. So that perhaps is where the problem lies.
Okay.
But again, I'm not 100% clear because it seems to be a side point. That's not a major point in his discussion, and he doesn't explain what the mechanism is. He just quotes the Chazal that from based on Mishlei that Meiser Oznan Mishmoya Torah. Again, the pasuk says like this: that somebody who removes his ear from learning Torah, Gam Tfiloso Te'eva, so his prayer is also disregarded. But it clearly comes from this idea from Meiser. I mean, he removes himself from Torah. It's not a person that works 24/7, but when he prays with his whole heart. So that's his avodah. His avodah is prayer. That we're not talking about that person. We're talking about a person who could be learning and shouldn't, but is not learning, and so he's creating the void and he's creating the destructive force. And now you're coming to daven. There's something wrong with that. Okay, let's continue. All right, so now we're in Perek Chav Zayin in Shar Dalet. So also this Perek, I find this Perek very difficult. And I'm not sure. Let's see if we have Siyat D'Shmaya now. Maybe some lights will go on, but because I don't know how to verbalize this parak. But this parak wants to address a really deep question: is what is the difference between a physical thing and a spiritual thing? meaning, I mean, he doesn't say it like that, but technically, if you think about it, everything that exists is spiritual. I mean, it's all emanating from God. The entire existence is an emanation of Hashem. So what's the difference between my pair of tefillin and, I don't know, on this table? Right? What's the difference between a Sefer Torah and whatever it is, any other item in a regular book? Right? Why do we treat certain things as holy and certain things that are unholy? Or regular, choil, okay, we call it choil, right? Mundane. What's the difference? They all emanate from Hashem. So you could say, okay, listen, simply speaking, right, there is really no difference. You know, Sefer Torah is Sefer Torah. It's a book. It's another book. But the Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted to teach us a lesson to say, listen, guys, you have to appreciate this is special. This will teach you how to live. So I want you to treat it with reverence. And it's not really, there is no anything different. It's still a physical item, right? And just I want you to have some respect for it. So treat it with reverence, right? For the same reason, if we have the Sefer falls on the floor, we pick it up, we kiss it. Why do we kiss it? Right, the Sefer didn't get hurt, right? We kiss it for our own selves. It's an expression that we want to kind of reinforce for ourselves that hey, that we feel something's wrong. That when a Sefer falls on the floor, we want to reinforce. Oh, this is such a special thing. If it fell on the floor, we want to reinforce that idea. So we kiss the Sefer. But the Sefer doesn't care whether we kiss it or not, right? So is that it, or is there something more to it? So the Nefesh HaChaim is going to go with the idea that there's something more to it. There's some essence. There's some essential difference between those items. And how he explains that, okay, that's what we're going to try to figure out. Okay, so let's see. So says the Paragraph Zayin, v'oid zois yisera, and there's an additional erech measure v'isrin kedushosa, and additional kedusha hanoira meha'ilamis, from the worlds, meaning from the physical worlds. Ki ha'el yonim, now even though the lofty creatures, meaning the lofty worlds, the higher up places, the spiritual places, af shekudushosam rabim oid, even though their kedusha is extremely high, great. Amnam, however, kasher nishtal shulu, when they are linked down, when they descend, v'yordu, and they go down, derech hishtal shulus, through the chain of existence, v'adrogos atzumis, in many kind of levels. Hagam, so even though shebechol oilam nitztayer v'nechtam boy kol sidrei ha'oilam she'omei olav, and even though, as a side point, even though each lower world has an imprint of the map of the world that's above it, right? Okay, I'll try to explain. B'dmusoi ketzalmei mamash kiyadua, in its image and likeness, or in likeness and image as it is known. Tana kegavna deli'ela is l'satan. Zohar says we learned that similarly to what is above, there is below, minayhu, from them. V'chein bekulu almin, and similarly in all of the worlds, kulu achidon, they all hold on, do bedo, this one to this one, v'do bedo, and this one to that one. What does that mean? Okay, so that's meaning he's saying so the higher worlds are very holy, okay, but they are going down, they are descending. Meaning, so there is the abstract existence, the spiritual existence that is not finite at all. It's all concepts. It's all whatever it is, quantum physics. I don't know, whatever. Metaphysics, whatever it is, right? But then it's becoming solidifying as it's going down into the physical world. It's becoming more gashmius, right? However, even though it's becoming more gashmius, there is a kind of a fossil record that is left to tell you, okay, this right here, you see this? This is where this world connects with the previous world, right? So there's always that connection. That's an achid and dobido. They hold on to one another. Right, there's always a connection where the more abstract world is noticed, is what's the word I'm looking for? Is noticeable. I don't know, noticeable is, I don't know, is okay, is detectable in this lower world, and so on. It continues. Each world has an imprint on the next, on the lower world. It's not there in essence, but there is a hint to it basically in the physical world. So just look, I mean, to illustrate it simply, so let's say we're learning Torah, right? So there's the pshat, right, which is the basic meaning of the text. That's, let's call it the physical text. There's the pshat, but then there's this extra letter over here, which is slightly out of place. So we know, oh, this extra letter comes to make a drasha, to include another idea that is not explicitly stated in the pasuk, and that other idea is more lofty, comes from it's less felt, it's less physical, comes from a more spiritual place, right? And then we look at that idea, and then we realize there's something missing in that idea because it's hinting to something else, and so on and so forth. And then so we can continue going. But the point is there has to be that extra vav, or that extra letter, or maybe a change in the tense, or some kind of a hint to some other idea that's encoded into this physical pasuk, right? Similarly, in the physical world, we live our regular routine life, and then something happens to us. We realize, oh, 1 second, there's a connection here to something spiritual, right? So we're going into a shul to daven, and we realize, okay, right now we're connecting to a higher place, okay. So even though that happens, so even though there is an imprint of all of those spiritual worlds in the physical world, okay. Again, so just quotes other places where this idea is expressed. Similarly, we find in the Rizal's writing, right, when it describes the 4 layers of the world, Ayin Shom, B'shar Drushe Avi, again, another place, B'shar HaShem is another place, Im Kol Zeh, right? So even though we have all of these references that tell us that each world is noticeable, is imprinted on the lower world, Im Kol Zeh, Eino Shove, still we know that it's not on the same level. V'doimen, it's not similar klal, Eirech Kedushosoi V'oire L'hoilam Shema Oilov. The level of Kedusha and the level of the Oira, of the light, is not on the same level as the world above it. So the lower world does not have the same level, right? We know that this lower world is more Gashmi than the world above it, right? Ad shekol kach nis'avu v'nismatu mikdushosam, that so much these creations became thick in the Nisavu, they became more tangible, and they were diminished from their original kedusha v'oirim, and from their original light, through this chain of existence and the various levels, until these things, once they get down into this world, they are chulin, they are considered mundane, and we practice with them in a way of mundane practice, right? We don't treat them with any special respect or reverence, right? So this table right here, this is a table. The table is a physical thing. It's made of wood. It was made of wood, put together. It serves a very mundane purpose, and I can do anything I want in it. I could push it around. I could put it over here. I could put it in the garage. I can put it in the bathroom if I like it. It's a mundane thing, even though at some point, it was coming down through very, very spiritual things. And even today, right now, I could look at it and realize, 1 second, table, it's also a symbol of something. It symbolizes something. Table is a symbol of a mizbeach, and mizbeach is a symbol of something else. So I can think of many ideas from this table. There's a lot of spirituality there that's available in this table. It's still here, meaning, the way I think about it is like this. So we have physicists, people who study the stars, right? So we can see the stars that we see with our regular light, with our regular white light in the visible spectrums, and we see all of the stars within the visible spectrum. But let's say they can detect stars that are from 13 billion light years away, which means that their light was created 13 billion light years ago and is just coming to us now. It's not light with a visible spectrum. By now that it's coming to us after so much distances, so much bumping into so much space, and who knows how many different galaxies and lights and passing through who knows what else, right? They only detect some kind of a gamma ray, whatever it is. But because they can read the brightness of the gamma ray that's coming to us, they can reverse engineer and figure out how far this light is coming from. So now they saw some flash of light. They know, oh, that's from some supernova that happened 13.5 billion years ago, right? So similarly here, you could, if you have the right eyes, you could look at any physical item, and you could realize how this item originates from the very original, Big Bang, meaning the very original creation in the spiritual worlds, right? But right now, for us, it's just a table. It's just a table. It's a physical item. It's mundane. It's choil. However, HaTorah HaKadosha, however, the Holy Torah, Av shegam hi nishtal shula. So even though the Torah we spoke about a few times, even though the Torah is nishtal shula, it went down. It was chained down. It was brought down. V'yorda, and it descended mimekor sharsha, from the original root, ha'elyon b'kodesh, right, the lofty root in holiness. Madregas ein shir, so many layers that there is no number. Me'olam le'olam, also throughout all of these worlds, right? So they're just like all the other creations went down from world to world to world into the physical world. So to the Torah went down from world to world to world into the physical world. Me'madrega le'madrega, and from a level to a level. Im kol zeh, however, despite all of this, kedushaso harishona, the original kedusha, k'moy shehu b'mekor sharsha, reishes darka b'kodesh, k'dekoy koy. The original Kedusha, exactly the way, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say exactly, Kamoishahu, like it was in the original root source, Reishes Darko, in the beginning of its way, Bakoidish and holiness, Kedekoikoi remains the same. Gambazeh Oilam, even in this world, Shekula Koidish, that it is completely holy. Ve'osur lin hagba min hakchoil, and we are forbidden to practice with it a practice of something mundane, right? So now he's saying, like I was saying, it's not that we revere the Torah and we kiss it when it comes, we stand up for it, and we can't just put it anywhere we want, and we have to treat it with special holiness. It's not because this is just laws of reverence that Hashem imposed for our teaching, that we should understand that this is important stuff. He's saying that no, as this creation is going down from layer to layer to layer, somehow, and this is the part I'm not clear about, somehow it does not lose its original Kedusha. It retains its original Kedusha, even though it's becoming more mundane at the same time.
So it's more of a physical object. It's a higher object.
So it's like, again, going back to the stars, I guess what it's saying is that the other creations, you can only notice this gamma light or whatever. Again, I'm just making up terms that fancy term, but whatever it is, this is some kind of a light or something that you can detect from the original supernova. While over here, you're seeing the physical light, but it fully reflects the original visible spectrum of the original light that was there, right? So as a result, even though there is this physical, right? So like we say, the Torah describes very physical things. This ox gores that ox, very physical things. But within those physical things, the original light is so potent that the Kedusha did not disappear from it. And so this, that we treat it with Kedusha, because it has, it's
the object,
the object right now, the sefer, and not only sefer, the actual learning about those things. Even though I'm learning about the halachas of ox goring and ox, which is very physical, just legal. It's a legal text. I'm learning what to do in this situation, a legal case, right? But at the same time, right now, this legal discussion of what to do in the case of an ox goring another ox, that legal discussion has the same holiness, or the status of the same holiness, as the most spiritual original source of this Torah. Okay? Well, let's continue more, and we'll try to digest this a little more. So, because he says, and this is why the Chachamim, were very stringent, okay, and dramatic about the punishment. I skipped the line. I'm sorry. Right. So we're forbidden to practice with it any practice of that is mundane. That even contemplating, thinking about the words of Torah, is forbidden in places that are unclean. Right, so we mentioned this idea that Torah can just, it's not a regular book that you can just take with you to the bathroom and read it, It's not that kind of a book, right? Why were they, right? And they, so much that they're regarding this, of thinking about Torah in an unclean place, right? They were very serious about the punishment for such a thing. And they said, now the quote I have here is V'perek Chelak. It's not there. It's not there. It's in Brachas, really. Shegam hu bechlal kedvar Hashem boza. That it is also included in this pasuk that we mentioned before, kedvar Hashem boza, that this person embarrasses kind of the word of Hashem. Okay. So the Seifei that Haikro, again, he reiterates this idea that the end of this pasuk, Dvar Hashem Bozo, is hikares tikares, that there's this double lotion of cutting off. So there is something interesting going on here. So there are two Gemaras, really, which he doesn't clarify for us. So there's really two Gemaras. There's a Gemara in Brachas that discusses learning Torah in an unclean place. Then there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Perek Chelak, that discusses this pasuk Kedvar Hashem Bozo more specifically. And over there, the Gemara has a few options. What does it mean? What is the pasuk referring to when it says Kedvar Hashem Bozo? So over there, there's one is, he doesn't accept the Torah as Min HaShamayim. Somebody who doesn't accept the Torah as Min HaShamayim, that's considered Kedvar Hashem Bozo, right? Or even the Gemara says, even if he doesn't accept, he accepts everything Min HaShamayim except this word right here was extra, was added on by later people, whatever it is. That's also Dvar Hashem Bozo. Good, so that's a serious thing, right? And over there, the Gemara says, Hikares, this idea that the end of this pasuk is this double chorus for such a person who doesn't accept Torah Min HaShamayim is very serious. That same Gemara speaks about what the Nefesh HaChaim brought, which is, it's talking about a guy who learned Torah and then he stepped away from it. The Gemara also calls that, according to another opinion, Kedvar Hashem Bozo, that he's rejecting or embarrassing the word of God. Right? Now, and then Nefesh HaChaim again says, that's also means Ikaris Tikaris, that person is also included in the end of this pasuk of cutting off, and that's what we discussed, that he was taking this very serious in the past few chapters, that he said that this chorus is worse than any other chorus there is. You're completely disassociating yourself from the whole linkage of creation, and that's like the worst. It's worse than it could be. You can't even do tshuva for this properly and whatever, right? That was our big chilush of those two chapters, right? Now, the Gemara in Brachas speaks about halacha of learning or saying Kriya Shema in an unclean places, and it's asur. And the Gemara says you have to stop, and how long you have to stop, do you have to start over again, whatever, it's a whole, these halachas. The Gemara says, what happens if he doesn't stop? And the Gemara has a few psukim that can be applied to it. One of the opinions says that maybe you can apply to him the pasuk Kedvar Hashem Bozo, that he embarrasses the word of Hashem, which he does. He takes the word of Hashem and he starts utilizing it or saying it in an inappropriate place. He's embarrassing the word of Hashem. Good. That's it. The Gemara of there in Brachas never mentions this idea of hikaris tikaris, of this double chorus, meaning even though that's from the same pasuk, but it would be hard to imagine
that he gets such
that a person who didn't stop saying Kriya Shema in a garbage dump because he was walking by a garbage dump, that all of a sudden, forget it, double chorus, from this world and from the next world. Okay, so that doesn't apply. So now, which you could look at it two ways. You could look at it now, okay, so because the Gemara in Brachas is being overly dramatic, and clearly Gemara understands that that this is not a direct reference. It's a more of a, what's the word? Over dramatized reference. That's one way to learn it. And so clearly, the Gemara never assumed that Hikaros Tikaros should apply to it. Now Nefesh HaChaim does apply to it. How serious does Nefesh HaChaim, can the Nefesh HaChaim be to apply to it? I can't. This just doesn't make any sense. I can't imagine that he's being serious. I mean, it can't be literal. Again, it could be a nice musa shmuz. It could be an over dramatization, because this is very serious. You are taking the word of Hashem, and especially the way He sees it. It's still in all of its holy glory, and you're misusing it in public. Okay, so in public, I'm saying you're misusing it in a disgusting place. So that's. But I cannot accept then logically that this is some very 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's not 2 plus 2 equals 4. To me, it's not. So then if this is not 2 plus 2 equals 4, then possibly in the previous chapter, when he talked about the person who could learn or didn't learn, or who learned and went away from it, that he did apply it. So maybe also, so we had a problem. It seems to be a little too severe. So maybe even over there also, maybe it's not really 2 plus 2 equals 4, because if it's not here, 2 plus 2 equals 4, so maybe over there also not. Or maybe you could say the Gemara in Brachas was over dramatic, and so it doesn't connect with the Gemara in Sanhedrin. I'm not sure. Okay, but we understand the ways, the 2 ways about this. Okay. Let's just read a little more. So that's one example of the special treatment that we give the words of Torah, that we have to avoid thinking about the words of Torah in an unclean place. And the way he understands that is because the Kedusha, you're connecting yourself to that original source. You're instantly connected to the original Kedusha. Now you bring it down into this disgusting place. It's not appropriate. V'omru, furthermore, they said, ha'oiches sefer Torah orum, somebody who holds the sefer Torah orum naked. Naked meaning he's holding it with his bare arm. Okay, so which is why when we are called to the Torah, we take either the talus when we need to kiss it, or with the gartel. We don't touch it with our bare hands, because on this base Gemara, it's based on this Gemara. The Gemara says, "Ha'oiches sefer Torah orum," somebody who holds the sefer Torah with a bare hand, nikbar orum, is buried naked, buried bare also. And the Gemara says, "What do you mean he's buried bare?" So the Gemara says, bare from all from mitzvahs. The Gemara says, from all the mitzvahs. The Gemara says, no, me'oisa mitzvah, from that particular mitzvah. Meaning, somehow, again, I don't know the mechanism here either, but somehow, when a person is holding the Sefer Torah with bare hands, so let's say during that time he was called up to the Torah and he's reading the Torah, so that holding of the Sefer Torah with bare hands somehow discredits that mitzvah, nullifies that mitzvah. Okay, he loses that mitzvah for holding onto the Torah with bare arms. You lose whatever mitzvah you were doing at that time. If he was doing Galila with bare arms, so he loses that mitzvah. Okay, so sometimes you have to do it. You don't have a choice, right? Let's say if you have to, let's say a sofer has to correct the letter, so he needs to be able to place his hand in order to hold it firmly. That's you don't have a choice. But we're talking about clearly when he has a choice, right? So according to the Nefesh HaChaim, this that we don't hold the Sefer Torah with bare hands, it's because it's too holy for us to touch. We can't just touch it directly. We have to have an indirect tfisa, an indirect grasp onto it, because it never fully descended into this world, or it did fully descended fully into this world with its original kedusha intact. Okay. Furthermore, gam osru litaltilo makom makom. Also, it was forbidden to just simply move the Sefer Torah from one place to the next, right? And even from one shul to the next, they forbade just moving a Sefer Torah, right? So there's a whole discussion around it. You can't just move a Sefer Torah for no reason, right? If you have a minyan, if you have a velus, there's a whole, just had this question come up. Anyways, so mitam, so what's the reason for that? The Nefesh HaChaim is saying, because it retains its original kedusha, forever retains its original kedusha. Okay, parentheses. I'm just gonna, as it says, now even if a person has his source of neshama at the loftiest possible worlds, right? So his neshama emanates from the highest place. Now this person went into some meditative state, okay, and he is now in a very pure state of mind, okay. And he is able to connect with some pure chesed, okay. He taps into this midah of chesed on the highest level. Right, he went into a meditative state. He tapped into the midah of chesed. He is ready to do chesed in the biggest lishma possible way imaginable. Okay, so again, he's a holy person. He tapped into the root of his soul, which is chesed, and now he's completely connected to the midah of chesed, and he's on his way to do this chesed. So and now as he passing these very unclean places, there's no reason for him to unplug for a second to bring himself down into this garbage dump in order to pass through. He's allowed to retain his holy kind of trance, or whatever you want to call it, while he's passing through this unclean place. Right? But at the same time, you have a regular Joe Schmo who just happens to be discussing or thinking about something in the Torah, and is passing through this place, he may be discussing, the laws of tzaras, and he's thinking about how white is the tzaras of a tzarua, right? Or Yishari dinim, or some other law, or any kinds of words of Torah that may be, he has to stop. It is forbidden for him to continue that thinking. He has to pause, right? So again, he just wants to illustrate with the parentheses. He wants to illustrate that the very mundane reality of the Torah is still much holier than the holiest person who is connected to some holy idea, right? To some holy concept, to some holy midah. At that very moment, this Joe Schmo is on a higher kind of, he's doing something that's a higher level, a higher kedusha than this person in his state of meditation. Okay? And this all comes back to the statement of the Zohar, the that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah is one entity. And that is, she'afal pi. Okay, this one. Okay, I mean, that's a side. Now he's going into another tangent. Meaning now he has a problem. I think that's what he's saying. Now he has a problem, because if he's saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Rais Echad, right? So on the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we spoke about this in previous gates, on the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no difference between an unclean place or a clean place. None of it exists. It's all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one, and all places are equal. Right? So now if you just told me 1 second, the original Kedusha of the Torah is in a place of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then the question really comes back, so let me think about it wherever I want. When I'm learning Torah, I'm not in this unclean place. I'm tapped into the very clean place. I'm no longer, my reality doesn't exist anymore. Right? So what's wrong? Right? So he's going to, even though, so right now he's first telling us that the reason why the Kedusha remains, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Torah is one, he first has to answer the question of, but if they're one, then none of this should apply, right? Okay, so that's he's going to go kind of like that. Okay, Vahu. How are we doing on time? It's getting late. Okay, anyways, let's just maybe rush through it. I'm not sure how far we're going to get through it. Maybe we should just stop here.
Right, let's not
because this is going to be like one of, it's a tangent. So let's just summarize. Let's just summarize. Right. So the big message from this parak so far is that unlike any other creation, I don't know if any other, maybe tefillin would have a similar concept, but unlike pretty much any other creation, the Torah, and not just the physical Sefer Torah, even the thoughts of Torah, the words of Torah, the learning of Torah, even though the content of the learning is very physical and discusses only physical things, at the same time, the original kedusha of those physical things is the way it was in the original state. Okay, which is why the Torah has all of these halachas of that treat the Torah in a very reverential way. The reason for all those halachas is not because this is just a nice way to do it. It is because the kedusha, the original kedusha, retains. Unlike all the other physical objects, as they come down into the physical world, they become just mundane things. Mundane things. So what's not clear to us? What's not clear to me, at least? What's not clear to me is, so I believe the Nefesh HaChaim. Okay, I believe the Nefesh HaChaim that when I talk about the ox, I'm connecting to the original source of the Torah. It's right here in this physical world. But how? I don't see it. How is it here in the physical world? Right now I'm talking about very, very practical things. So if I pick up an American law textbook which talks about the same case of the ox, right, and discusses it, and I'm thinking about it, okay, that's just choil, that's my mundane activity. But if I talk about the ox and I'm learning Torah's perspective on it, okay, which is, again, it's Hashem's perspective, it's Torah's perspective on it, I understand that. So that's what makes it holy. But why is it automatically now as if the original kedusha of Hashem? Why is that? Why is that true? I mean, he says it's true, and it's nice, but I want to understand why that's true. What makes the Torah different? That when I'm talking about the ox, I'm really connecting to the original source. I mean, if I would really understand that, that would be just like, to me that would be quite. I understand, just like from the example of the light, that I can see the deeper lights through the Torah as I start thinking more about the situation of the ox and what it represents and why did Hashem say it this way. I start climbing up that ladder and recognizing those additional lights. That part I understand, right? But I have to make that climb. And he's saying, no, I don't even need to make that climb. If I'm talking about very simple, mundane things, as long as it is from the perspective of the Torah, the climb is already built in. It's built in. Yes, I can go higher, obviously, but it's already built in into the very nature of the physical discussion. And I'm not sure I understand why that's so. Why is it? Where is it? It's like the DNA is already encoded, and I don't know if I'm not seeing it.